Hey everyone, James Labrie from Dream Theater, and you're listening to or watching the podcast Talking into Infinity with JT and Brian. Enjoy this. These guys are extremely informative. I love their dialogue. I love their interpretation of the songs, who and what we are, what we were going after. They're very accurate in their interpretations and descriptions, and I just think this is a great show, and these guys are doing a stand-up stellar job. So once again, enjoy Talking into Infinity with JT and Brian.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Talking into Infinity, a Dream Theater-centric podcast. I am your host, John. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, talkingintoinfinity.com, and the cmsnetwork.com. We are live at those four locations every other Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you are tuned in on YouTube, don't forget to click that like button, click that subscribe button, and smash the notification bell so that you are notified every time we go live. If you are looking for video replays of the show, every episode that we've ever done is on our YouTube channel, or you can go to the YouTube channel of the CMS Network. Our show is there, along with a ton of other great content from the CMS Network, including a special appearance that I did this past Monday on Chris Aiken Presents. You should check that out. It was a great time. Aiken and I goofing around for 2 hours. If you are looking for audio versions of the podcast, just Google Talking into Infinity Podcast, and we are pretty much on any platform that you can think of. So check us out there. Without further ado, as usual, my partner in crime, Mr. Brian Hendrickson, mourning the fact that his St. Louis Blues are not in the hockey playoffs for the NHL this year.
They are not. I'm trying to do some magic so we can draft this Connor Bedard. I know you're probably not much up on hockey, but he's supposed to be the next goal-scoring phenom.
Yeah, no offense. Leave that guy alone. Let my Columbus Blue Jackets get him.
Oh, okay.
As much as I don't really follow hockey, I am a Blue Jackets fan because they're the Ohio team, and so I guess they really sucked this year from when I was keeping up with it. So I'm hoping they get him. So
yeah, I don't think they sucked enough. They started winning, I think, a few here and there. So we'll see. I mean, there was I guess it's kind of like the NBA. Was it the one year when San Antonio got Tim Duncan and they should have been like fifth or whatever. You know?
Yeah.
You're going to need one of those scenarios. But yeah, as I was telling you, I was up until 12:30 a.m. watching Edmonton play last night. So I'm like invested in these hockey playoffs. I really think it's the best true barometer of in all of sports because it's just such a slog, 81 games and then 16. And you saw the best team, the most points in history, the Bruins. Thank God we're knocked out. F Boston.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes, very much so.
Now, if we can have the Celtics lose too, we can have like another however many million sad Boston meme, fan memes. That would be amazing.
I am totally with you on that, man.
But we're back to talking Dream Theater tonight, I guess.
It's
been a while.
Yeah, we're down to only 2 records that we haven't done a deep dive into, and this is one of them. Real quick, since this is something I spoke about in the intro, Chastity Crawley, good to see you. She says, "Yeah, that alert was very confusing with you and Chris. Yeah, you can cross broadcast when you're on another show. So on Monday when I was on Chris Aiken Presents, I didn't know that, and it says, "Do you want to broadcast this to your network?" And yeah. So I just hit broadcast, and there was a live show with me and Chris from 8 to 10. So that will happen from time to time. I'm sure Brian will make an appearance on Chris Aiken Presents. That was my first time on there, but it was a good time. If you guys haven't seen it, it is on the Talking into Infinity YouTube channel or the CMS Network channel. It was a fun discussion. We interviewed a new band called Seven Stones, and they were pretty cool. It kind of like a... I said it's kind of like early 2000s nu metal if you heavied it up and mixed in some Southern influence. So pretty cool. They're actually going out on tour with Texas Hippie Coalition. So we talked to their lead singer, Drew. Super nice guy. That was fun. But yeah, so you might get stuff like that every now and again if we are doing something outside of the Talking into Infinity box. So, but to your point, Brian, we are back and we are talking Dream Theater. And Robert Reams says, of course, this album deep dive is tonight. Absolutely love this album. He's at the Haken concert in Cleveland. Lots of Dream Theater fans here. Robert, if you are able to hear us, how is the attendance there? We were wondering if there was a lot of people, not a lot of people. We were wondering how the tickets were going to sell, because we weren't sure if that was kind of too big a venue for Haken or not. So if you can hear us, let us know what the attendance looks like so far. But so back to Dream Theater, Brian. This is an album for me I don't go back to a lot. This one and Train of Thought, I think, are the two that I revisit the least. What about you? How, do you come back to this one? Are you a big fan of this one? Like, where do you stand?
Well, I didn't even know when this album originally came out, because if you look at it, it came out literally only 2 years after the first one with Mangini.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was cutting it too close in listening to it now. But I do have a new appreciation for... It's weird. Can you have an appreciation for the songs but still kind of be annoyed with the album? We've talked about like these sort of differences between an album could have great songs. Even if all the songs are great, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a great album, which is a stupid probably concept to try to make an argument on. But I will do my best to sort of guide through that sort of type of a thing on this. But I think I will go back to songs off of here, but not the album itself. And have we become more creatures of that just because of the way we consume music now? Or because we're old school, if an album is good enough, we should be going back and doing the entire album? That's almost a show in itself right there for a discussion.
Yeah. No, I think that might be singular to Dream Theater, honestly, because, my favorite band is Van Halen. Dream Theater is a very close number 2, as I've mentioned many times. And I love all the records by both bands. And there's ones I go back to less, this being one of them. But I think with Van Halen, like, I'll listen to the ones that I don't listen to a lot more frequently because they're easier to digest. I think with Dream Theater, what you have is, because of the complexity of the songs, and there's so much to take in, to sit through an entire record, if it's not like, for me, like if I put on Falling Into Infinity, for example, I'm going all the way through. Distance Over Time is kind of the same way, Images and Words. But if it's an album that you like most of it, let's say you like all of it, but you're like, okay, well, this is not what I normally come back to. It's a lot to digest in one sitting because there's so much going on. I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I guess. So I'll just start right off with saying, like, there's kind of a sadness to this album. There's sort of a dark sort of a melancholy in a way, like there's a little bit of hope under the surface on some of the songs, but I don't know. It comes across kind of monochrome, and I've been on here before talking about this. Like, I absolutely hate the fact that it's self-titled. I think it's A, it's lazy, and B, it's the 12th album. I think 12th or 13th. I think it's the 12th. It's the 12th album. Like, don't. And I read something online. I don't know how true this is. It's like, well, this was supposed to be like a sort of a new beginning. Well, don't call it. Then why are you calling it Dream Theater? Dream Theater. That doesn't sound like a new beginning.
Yeah.
To me, I don't know. So I'm kind of annoyed with that. I don't think the album cover does anything. That's sort of that monochrome feel, like it's sort of boring looking. I think they kind of dropped the ball on that, especially because I really love the cover of Dramatic Turn of Events.
Yeah.
And some of the video stuff they did with that. So I don't know. It's things like those are the type of things about this album that right off the bat just kind of strike me a little bit off.
Okay. Yeah, I think for me, what gets me is the production. That's the biggest thing that stands out. And it's always stood out to me. And when you're listening through the record, I mean, obviously the first thing is the snare drum. It's not good. It sounds like the snare is actually off. So that, as you listen to the record as a whole, you can kind of get used to it. As soon as you put on any other Dream Theater record, you hear it. You're like, oh my God, that snare drum. And I think the other thing about it is that this this is lacking a certain size and depth in the production, and I think it comes from the vocals and the drums. The drums sound like it doesn't sound like there's much reverb on them. It just sounds like you're in a very small, tight room. There's no thundering space to it, like you would normally hear on other albums. And the vocals have a weird effect. The only way that I thought to describe it is kind of like a digitized effect. It's not, again, it's not big, it's not lush. And the guitars sound great. They sound, the same. I think at times the keys could come up a little bit in the mix, but I still think that's really good. And the bass is really present, especially in some of the solo sections, which is great. I think this has some of John Mayung's best bass tones. But for me, it's the production. It doesn't sound as big as all of the other records. It's more direct, tight in your face, and I don't particularly care for that from a Dream Theater album. If that makes sense, it's like I want something bigger, and I think that's kind of where it hits me. I don't know if I get melancholy. It sounds kind of adult. When you say melancholy, I guess the thing I would compare it to would be like Queensryche's Promised Land. They said that when they wrote that record, they were writing from the perspective of a band that had made it. They had finally made it, and now, okay, well, we're grown-ups now. We've got money. What do we do? Like, how has life changed? It's like, and so I guess I kind of hear a little bit of that in this. I don't know if I'd call it melancholy like you did, but to me, I hear a little bit. Maybe it's maturity, I suppose, or something, and maybe it's just them settling into their new skin without Mike Portnoy. 3 years into that.
Yeah, so Chastity Crowley says a little tired. I don't. That's not a horrible word for it. It's weird because we're going to go track by track, and then I'm going to start saying how much I like certain things in these songs and these songs in general. So I'm going to come across it's like, well, now what are you talking about when you're saying this? But I don't know. The performances are sort of uninspired. I don't think Petrucci really drives much on this album. I'm going to kind of disagree on the guitars. I don't mind the tone of them, but I think there's only like two songs really where he kind of drives and the riffs are just there and super memorable on guitar, and the rest I think is kind of, I don't want to say thrown together, but Jordan's sort of kind of more, maybe the keyboards are more sort of driving them, but they're kind of flat in the mix. Like you said, they're probably not pumped up enough, and I don't know. There's something tired, melancholy. I'll go back to monochromatic. Just very flat, and I don't know. I don't get enough. There's definitely some highs I get, but I just don't feel the dynamics between the middle and the highs like I should, because I feel like I'm riding the middle so long on this thing, and I guess it is the production, like you said. I don't like the snare. I don't like the bass drum either. To me, it just sounds like electronic drums. Like, doesn't even sound like a real drummer's playing a lot of it, which is weird because I thought on Distance Over Time that was totally mapped out, and that feels more live to me than this does. So I don't know.
Yeah, the other thing with the drums, I think, is that the cymbals are too low in the mix.
Yes,
yes. A lot of the cymbal play that you would normally get, you can't really hear, and it's a lot of kick and snare, and the octobans, or rototoms, which whatever it's the correct term for those ones he used to have really high up above his head. Those are really present, but yeah, I think there's not enough cymbals to. I just think the drum mix really hampers the production on the record. And I think I've always thought this, and I think I've mentioned this on previous shows. This album, it was an experiment for them. They said, well, let's see if we can take our long form songwriting and fit it into short form. Like let's write more concise songs, like 4 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever. And I don't think it was as successful as it would later be on Distance Over Time. I think for that type of experiment, I think Distance Over Time nails it, and I think this one does not.
Well, is that partially too because of the way this was recorded? And I haven't read up on this one. Was this more one of the ones where they all kind of come in and already sort of have some ideas and then try to put them together, or was it, as organic as Distance Over Time? From my understanding of that was everyone get in the room and just start jamming and let's see what happens.
No, I think this was they've always been doing the let's get in a room and just see what happens thing since, oh God, there was a few records before Portnoy left. They were doing that. So I don't think it's that. I also think part of it is like I don't really think they hit their stride with the Mangini lineup until The Astonishing. And I know a lot of people don't like that record, but that record feels a lot more natural. Much more natural to me than Dramatic Turn or the self-titled record. And then obviously Distance Over Time is awesome, and the new record is great. So I think they were getting their footing not having Mike Portnoy in there as a third songwriter, which I think is why you notice that records like Distance Over Time and A View from the Top of the World are very guitar driven. Like you're saying, this one is not. I hear a lot more keyboards on Dramatic Turn as well, and then obviously The Astonishing is a whole other thing because it's a concept record, but. I think when they really hit their stride, it's like Petrucci's like he kind of takes over. It's like, okay, let's have some kick-ass guitar, By the way, real quick, I want to bring this up. This is a good question. Brandon Charles, good to see you again, man. He says, say they released a remastered version, would you like the release better? I would, actually. I think it would hit me a little better because the production does lack in certain areas to me, and I can't get around it because it's not like minor stuff. It's not like when you're listening to an 80s record and it's all tinny and shit. It's like the whole record's like that, okay, well, all the 80s are tinny and shit, like whatever. You just accept it and move on. With this one, I think it's like, God damn, that snare drum and the vocals with no space to breathe, and it sounds like they were recorded in a closet or something. So yeah, Brandon, I think I would prefer like a remixed, remastered version. What about you, Brian? Would that help anything with you?
I don't know. Those are always tricky. I mean, can you name a remastered thing that you heard and were like, oh my God? Like the only one I can think of was like Aerosmith took, and this was going way back, like I think late 80s. They remastered some live stuff they had basically and put it out as new, but it was stuff that I don't know had necessarily been released before, but they went in the studio and sort of doctored it up, and it sounded absolutely freaking amazing. It was recordings from like 77 to 79, whatever, that period. But other than that, I don't know. The remastering thing, like, I don't think you're going to fix the snare. Like, you're not going to magically, how's that going to, you know what I mean? That's the sound that it is.
Yeah, I think if I was going to compare it to anything, I would say, and this might be heresy because I know a lot of people hate these releases, but I thought there was a lot to like about the Megadeth remasters because parts that were tinny, they kind of fattened up. I did not like what they did to the snare drum on a lot of those because it took a lot of balls out of it. But I mean, if you play the original version of Rust in Peace back to back with the remastered one, I mean, there was some really stupid changes in there. Notably the Magix 5, like, I master Magix 5, like he put a fucking Muppet voice in there. But
I have to hear that now when we're done with the show.
Oh God, it's terrible. It's like, and the original, it's like, I master Magix 5, and the remastered literally goes, I master Magix 5. I mean, when I first heard it, I was like, it was one of those like, what the fuck, like you're like, what is that? It's like, what the hell, like. And to do that, especially on a record that all of us know like the back of our hands, like, what the hell? But if you, like, Hangar 18 is the perfect example. If you play the original version and then put on the remastered version, it's way louder, way heavier, and you're like, okay, like this is, Brandon Charles, he went against me. He says, yeah, I was about to bring up Megadeth. Can't stand the new versions of Symphony of Destruction or Hangar 18. See, dude, I think the new version of Hangar 18 is heavy as balls. I love it. I think it's great. I think the guitar harmonies stand out more. Symphony of Destruction, I that whole record, Brandon, like I was saying, the snare drum is I don't know why Dave changed those damn snare drums, man, because they were fine. I mean, so I might be on board with the Symphony of Destruction thing. I think it took away some of the size of it. It was a perfect mix. It was perfectly recorded, and to kind of break it down, I didn't like. But man, Hangar 18 is way heavier, so that's cool. So why don't we go track by track on this and see what we got? Obviously, this starts out with the False Awakening Suite. It was one of those times. Have they ever? I'm trying to think, like off the cuff. Have they ever recorded something like this where it was obviously okay? This is the show intro, but they put it on the album. You know, this big long. You know, like it wasn't long. I shouldn't say that, but
yeah,
I don't think
it's 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Yeah, I've put the same thing. I thought this should be the intro to come on stage, and not
Right.
on the album. I don't know. It's kind of like, is this a science fiction movie intro, or in a way, it's also kind of previewing The Astonishing, I think, to some degree. And I think we hear that.
I thought the same thing.
We hear
Yes.
the melody on this and the last song. I don't know. You kind of start wanting to sing the Astonishing melody in parts. I feel like, but
Right.
I don't know. There's a really cool guitar once you get like 2 minutes in that spiraling guitar thing. But this whole thing, it almost feels more like the way that the actual song ends, if you want to call it a song. It feels like a finale than an introduction, because it's got this big bombastic ending to this suite or whatever. I don't know. It's a little strange way to start the album, and I don't think it has thing one to do with the next song at all. So like right away, I don't know if I'm confused or what's going on.
I have to admit, I like it. I thought it was cool, and when I first got the record, I was like, okay, like there's a lot of really cool melodic stuff in here. Of all things, I actually think it could have been a hair longer. And that's because I really liked the melodic choices that they made in this. I thought it was really cool. I thought it moved through it a little too fast, which to me is a perfect analogy for the whole record. Is that I think they landed some really good ideas, but then go past it too quickly. It's like I would have liked to have heard more of that, which is why I said I think that the Distance Over Time is a perfect example of them nailing what they were going for on this record. But yeah, I mean, I like this. I don't mind it. You're right. It has nothing to do with The Enemy Inside, but I think it's cool, man. I just like it as a piece of music. I think it's cool. So I mean, it was obviously okay. We know what we're gonna get when we get to the live show. Like we always know. Okay, well, the first song is gonna be, the first track on the record. We know that, but this was the first time it's like, okay, now we really know what they're coming out to.
Yep.
So, all right. So moving on to the first actual song, we have The Enemy Inside. What are your thoughts on The Enemy Inside?
Yeah, I think if you're talking about what they were going for, this is the one where they probably nail it the best, right? It's 6 minutes. You got enough prog. You got enough heavy parts. I love the keyboard taking that melodic riff solo thing after the first chorus or second chorus. It's one of those DT songs where you're hanging off the edge of the roller coaster, all those hills, and you're this close to falling off the track.
Right.
It never really lets up, and it just gets into full gear. And I think if they're going for the shorter, to the point, but still has some crunch and still have some metal in them and enough little prog parts, this is probably the quintessential song to do that on this album.
Yeah, I really like this. I think it was, to me, it was obvious right off the bat that this was something where, unlike A Dramatic Turn of Events, Mangini was like, okay, he wrote his own drum parts. I mean, just right off the bat, you've got that, that roto tom thing, like going into the main riff. It was like, okay, Yeah, John Petrucci didn't program that into a drum machine to go, "Hey, play this." Like that's Mike Mangini being like, "Hey, check this out." So I thought that was pretty obvious right off the rip. So that was cool. It's a great song, man. I know I had it pretty low on my opening songs list, but I think that's just because I like the other opening songs better. But yeah, I completely agree with you that if they're going for a more concise presentation, this song definitely is the one that kind of nails it. A couple other ones on the record do a good job of it, but I think if you're looking for that progressive side of Dream Theater, I think this is the one that kind of nails it. And it does also set a precedent for the record. I will say one thing. I think that the choruses on this album are really strong. There's a lot of really big choruses, and I think that's why the production kind of pisses me off so much, because I think if you had that huge, lush, normal Dream Theater production, we'd be talking about this record as maybe the strongest in terms of the quality of the choruses in all of the songs. So, this one starts down that path of having a really good chorus, and it also, I think John Petrucci's solo work on this album is some of the best he's done, and this is another great example. And yeah, I like this song. This is a cool one, and I kind of wish they would play it more live. I think this would be a good song in the middle of a show.
Yeah, this seems like the standard, like, if they're going to do something where they're trying to hit every album or hit certain areas, like you almost would have to pull this one out. But yeah, I like this song. I mean, this is a good, I don't know if we ended up putting this on our safe for non-prog lovers list or whatever we called it. This probably would be a decent one, though.
Yeah. No, I think it is. It's, it's got enough of the, the Dream Theater elements to go, okay, like they do all this crazy stuff, but it's to the point. It doesn't over prog you. It's just one of those things. Like, I think if you listen to this as someone who only knows Dream Theater as a band, I heard they just do nothing but noodle. Well, you get a little bit of that in this song. So like, I can hear that. But I think you can also, get into the song structure and it's a little, how direct it is compared to some of the other material. So, pretty cool. Moving on to track 3, we have what I feel might be, actually probably is the best song on the record, The Looking Glass. And to me, I think, isn't this the one everyone's like, oh, this is so Rush influenced or something? Yep. I can definitely hear that, but this is the song that stood out to me immediately upon getting the record. And this is a song I do go back to a lot. There's another one on this album that I go back to quite frequently, and but this is the main one. I just think this is a phenomenal song. The guitar solo is one of John Petrucci's most perfect pieces ever, in my opinion. It's just the melodies are everywhere. It's a more upbeat kind of a song, and it's just catchy. And I really love how in the chorus where it starts out, with like the clean core, like the clean channel guitar, and just you are living a tragedy, the breathy vocal, like mellow.
Yep.
And then it gets live without shame, like, it goes back into it and stuff like that. And then the verses are more rocking than the chorus. I just really think that's such a cool presentation. So this is definitely one of it's my favorite on this record. It's actually, it's pretty high up there in terms of Dream Theater songs that I really, really enjoy.
So one of their rare major keys, although technically when the chorus I think goes, that probably goes to minor, but the main riffs and stuff are mostly major, which is, at least gives you a little bit of happiness to sink us out of kind of that monochrome melancholy I've been talking about. Yeah, I mean, I love the guitar riffs in this. We don't even hit 5 minutes on this song. It's 4:52 is what I had it clocked at. The breakdown bridge with the bass driving it, and then there's that solo. It's the first solo on here with the super melodic, thing that Petrucci does that we just love to death. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, this song I think embodies what you're talking about, of the vocals never breathe. Like, he doesn't take a breath, I don't think, on a lot of these. And this is one too where it sort of feels like that in times. But great song. I mean, in general, I like there is a simplicity to this, but it's a huge nod to sort of moving pictures.
Yep. I think they make some really interesting melodic choices on this album in certain spots. So it kind of stands out in the catalog for that reason. It's a lot of things that we hadn't heard from them previously, but I think this one kind of anchors you in that feeling of, okay, this is a Dream Theater record. This is, okay, for all you hardcore fans, like, this is what you came for. And I think it's just an excellent song. And to your point, I mean, it's less than 5 minutes long. I think this is one of those ones that feels a little bit longer, but in a good way. I think it feels like there's more there than there actually is. So I love songs like that where you're like, holy shit, really? Like it's only been like 5 minutes. Like I love that. That's just awesome to me. So moving on to track number 4. I know I got shit on for this, but to me, one of their best instrumentals, Enigma Machine. Where do you stand on Enigma Machine?
Ladies and gentlemen, on wind chimes, Mr. Freddy Krueger. I mean, that's the heaviest riff they've ever done. That starts out the down, down, down. It ends up taking off. It sounds like Inspector Gadget after a few beers on a detuned metal binge.
Right.
I mean,
hey, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Hold your thought real quick.
Okay.
We got to pull this coming up. Planet of Shapes says, yay, glad you guys are on. I'm serving tables at work, but hiding in the back for a couple of minutes here and there to listen. Ha ha. Planet of Shapes, that is amazing.
Who the hell is Planet of the Shapes?
Oh man, he's whoever he is, he's listening to us while he's working. So that's amazing. Thank you for tuning in, bro. Hopefully you're having a good time, and hopefully you're making a lot of tips tonight. Tell those people to tip heavy, man. That's working for a living. So that's awesome. Thanks, man. So anyways, man, sorry. I had to bring that up since he's only in and out.
Oh, no, no.
Wanted to bring him up there. So anyways.
It's like a spooky Halloween free-for-all. I even hear like hints of like Mr. Scary in this, they get some guitar harmony things going on there that are kind of eerie. I don't mind this one. I mean, it's 6 minutes, which I think is good. If this is 9 minutes or even 8, I'm probably super annoyed at that point. But I really love that cool like keyboard wind chimey thing that starts it out, and there's enough little interesting things in it.
Yeah, this one is one of my favorites, man. It's like, and specifically for the reason that you just mentioned, it's got this cool like evil vibe to it, and it's creepy, and man, this song just jams. Like you said, it's kind of like the perfect length. Isn't it? Like you said, like 6 minutes. And I mean, again, this was kind of another obvious thing on the record, but okay, well, if they play this live, we know where the drum solo is coming.
Right.
So we knew that was going to happen. So yeah, I just think I love the heaviness of it. To me, like that's one thing that stood out to me upon repeated listens to this record is that I felt the same way I felt when I first got it, that the record starts out really, 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 really strong. And, I like the first 4 songs a lot. I think they're very solid. Chastity Crowley, she says, this is the Alien on the Farm song. She was saying earlier that it sounds like, like there's all sorts of goofy sound effects and there's an alien like just comes and lands in like a farmhouse in their farmyard or whatever. Yeah, I just think this song rocks, man. And I think the first 4 songs, like the album starts out killer. And I think it's just like the back half that kind of are the songs that don't grab me, as much. Starting with the next one, The Bigger Picture, track 5. What are your thoughts on The Bigger Picture?
Man, I'm maybe I'm going to disagree with you on this one, because if this is where you say it's going downhill, I think you're insane. I think this song is criminally underrated.
Okay.
I mean I'm going to almost put this in the Spirit Carries On category. I mean I'm always partial. I'm partial to piano stuff, but man, you start with Jordan on piano, and then the acoustic guitar comes in with the piano. And then we get those, Petrucci does one of those melodic solos again, where it's like you're on the Pegasus riding into the great realm beyond, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then after the first part of that solo, he puts the harmony on top of that. So you got dude, you're floating. It's an out-of-body experience. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. I completely missed this song the first time around, and when we started up the show, and I kind of started going back and listening, and we're like doing different episodes of, trying to pull songs out for whatever type of topics we had. I remember hearing this and going, "Wow, it's pretty good." And then I came back to it a few times, and now I'm just like absolutely love this. And we, at the end, you sort of devolve into what we talked about. It's like that '80s summer guitar riff. You turn the windows down. You just sort of start feeling good. And I don't know, man. 740. This song just kind of takes on a couple different lives of itself, and I love where it ends up.
Yeah, it's not that I dislike this song. I just think it's not as strong as other songs on the record. I mean, I like it. Don't get me wrong, and you're correct in saying that it does sound really big, and it's got a majestic feel to it in parts. I just think there's enough parts that I'm kind of like, yeah, that's okay. Like that they're kind of average sounding to my ears that I'm like, all right, well, like the first 4 songs, I mean, granted, False Awakening Suite's just an intro track, but the first 4 songs I really, really liked all of it. I could just listen to them like, cool, man, no complaints. And I think that this is the first time where, on the record I'm like, I don't know. Because I think, like I was saying, there's some stuff that they do on the record that it's so good, but they cut it off and move to another thing in the interest of trying to condense their songwriting. And I think this song's a perfect example. There's a couple different parts that I just think could be fleshed out a little bit more. So I think, like I said, it's not that I dislike the song. I'm not saying the record's downhill or anything. There's some parts of the song I'd like to hear more of. And I feel like, damn, like it was a missed opportunity. I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah. Am I muted? Oh,
nope.
God, who sure I muted myself?
You can look on your own screen and see if it says muted.
Sorry, I was on my other screen. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think this one flows pretty darn good. I completely agree with what you're saying. When we're going to get to some of these other ones coming up here, you'll see that I totally agree on a few points you've made earlier.
Yeah.
But on this one, I think, man, this is just a great. I just love the piano. I love his voice on this. I think this suits him absolutely great. And I have no idea if wasn't there one on here they'd never played before. Was that Surrender to Reason?
Yeah, Surrender to Reason.
Okay. Not sure how many times they played Big Picture, but man, that would be. I'd love to hear this live.
Yeah, it'd be good. I wouldn't mind. This is not like Ministry of Lost Souls where it's like, damn it. Robert Reams, he says, very inspirational song. Almost sounds like a prayer. Very spiritual based off the sounds and lyrics. Giovanni Palaya, good to see you, man. I haven't seen you in a bit. He says, the bigger picture was a blueprint for Barstool Warrior. Great song. Giovanni, I love that point because I would completely agree. And I think that, it just falls in line with what I, said a few times on the show, that I think that Distance Over Time is the successful version of the experiment they went for on this self-titled record. So good call there, man. It's probably not what you meant, but that kind of falls in line with what I was thinking. So moving on, we have Behind the Veil. This is we talk about a guitar song. This has one of the kick-ass riffs on the record. It's that John Petrucci, hey, I really love metal, check it out types of riffs, which is awesome. I like how again, kind of like the Looking Glass, the chorus does something unique, and I like how it goes to the halftime, and again, just these big choruses on this album. Oh man, I wish this thing sounded better. If it had production like Dramatic Turn or something like 6 Degrees or Scenes from a Memory, man, oh man, this thing would be huge. But yeah, so I love the metal riff. I love the chorus. This is, to me, this is an underrated song. You said the bigger picture is underrated. I think Behind the Veil is a little underrated. I dig this one. Now, I will say it does suffer again from I could have used a little more of certain parts of this song. So I think that kind of takes away from it. But I think this is a great song, and this is one I wouldn't mind hearing live more often. Where do you stand?
Yeah, I like the really cool beginning with those keyboard sounds. Did you notice on the intro there's a little bit of creeping death right there?
Yes.
It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
there's a serious creeping death vibe there.
Right.
Yeah, I like the changes and the accents and the chord. I agree with you 100%. The choruses are out of this world on some of these songs that I kind of originally sort of thought were throwaways. But I'm going to disagree. I'm not a huge fan of the riff. I'm not a huge fan of the verse. What I do like guitar-wise on the chorus, there's a with the guitar harmony thing there, kind of right as they're finishing the chorus. If you notice, there's a very Empire Mindcrime thing going right there. It's like literally, and I think this is what you're talking about. Like I would love a little bit more of that. It's just like those little 3-second riffs that he does there. And you're like, man, let's hear a few more of those. But it's one of the few where we get Jordan doing a solo with the super fat synth type sound, which kind of goes back to Styx a little bit. And I love when he does that on his solos. But yeah, I wish the verses were a little stronger for this, in my opinion. But I love the chorus on this song.
Okay. Yeah. Giovanni Palaia says the Looking Glass equals Rush, Behind the Veil equals Megadeth vocally. Yeah, I could see that. The only thing I will say, though, I obviously I don't think we're hearing Megadeth in the chorus, though, Giovanni. That's just one of those giant, like, soaring Dream Theater choruses. But, I mean, in the verses and stuff, yeah, I mean, it gets pretty heavy, which is cool. This one has it's a very diverse song, I think, in terms of the feel. It kind of goes back and forth. It keeps a certain energy to it, but I think in terms of feel, it kind of goes back and forth, which I really like. So this is a great song to me, and I was going to say this at the outset, and I forgot to, so I'll mention this now. Listening to this record a bunch over the last week, to prepare for tonight, I had a Hendrickson moment where.
Oh boy, this could go like 40 different ways. I'm sure none of them are going to be good.
Yeah. No, but I mean, there's been a couple records that we've done a deep dive into that when we went to go into it, you're like, yeah, I don't like this album. But then you said, you know what? When I listen back to it, I actually really like it. And like I said at the beginning of the show, this one and Train of Thought are the two that I go back to the least. And I like this one a lot more than I remember liking it. So, again, the production takes away from it, and my issues with it, I still have those issues, but I enjoyed it a lot more than I had previously. So I think that's kind of cool, It's nice to come back to a record that you don't really think about and go, damn, yeah, I like this part, I like that part. So I kind of had that, so I enjoy that, and I think this song is a perfect encapsulation of that. So moving on to the next song. We have Surrender to Reason. I don't have much on this song because this one is just kind of there for me. I don't really have many notes on it because it's like it doesn't really do much for me. This is the one song on the record I'm just like, yeah, okay, cool. Like, it's there. It's a Dream Theater song. It's good. I wouldn't kick it out of bed, but I'm not asking it out on a second date. So, not a lot of memorable stuff on here, but good chorus. Again, at least I like the chorus, and it's an okay song. I could see why this is the one that they've not played live. What do you think?
Well, I'll say if the Looking Glass is Rush and Behind the Veil is Megadeth, then Surrender to Reason is, I guess, Foghat. No, sorry. I just wanted to get a Foghat reference in there.
Foghat. Oh, my God.
That was literally like the second record I ever bought was Foghat Live. I love that song, Slow Ride, man. It was amazing.
Oh, my God.
Not even kidding. But, no, I mean, okay, so this is a huge, you're not a big Rush guy. So you won't pick up on this, but the beginning is this can sound confusing. The beginning of the song is the end of Losing It off the Signals album by Rush.
Okay.
And the riff that's kind of comes right after that's a huge Permanent Waves type Free Will riff in general. That's a very Rush thing. But then this is where I'm going to agree with you. Like, this song is kind of all over the place. We go into that acoustic guitar thing, and I don't know how this stuff all fits together. I do like the chorus a lot, but there's a lot of bridges in the sky there,
Yeah.
kind of melodically, vocally, thematically, even in the lyrics. Probably my favorite parts again after the first chorus. If you're, this is the best part about this album. I think almost every time that when they do their first chorus or the second, they immediately go to Petrucci doing his melodic solo, rather than his crazy stuff. That comes first. So you get that, your appetite's whetted by that. I like the accents with the big choir sounds in the symphony. But the problem I have with the song is it feels kind of all over the place, and we start one place and we end up, I like where we end up, but there's songs in the past where I go, I don't know how we got from this to this, and I'm okay with it because I liked it, but on this one, I'm not so sure about the ride wasn't that smooth. Let's just say not to make a pun on the being along for the ride, which is coming next. But
Yeah.
But I don't know. I can totally see why this would be yours and probably most people's least favorite, and the song they've never played live. Right? It makes sense.
Yep. Yeah. You bring up a good point. The intro basically has nothing to do with the rest of the song, and I think, We'll get to more of that later in this record. Oh boy, will we get to more of that later. But the song starts, it's got an intro, and then all of a sudden it's in a totally different place. And I think that's one of those things where when they're again, it's a songwriting thing. When they're trying to fit a long form songwriting technique into a short form, if this song was like one of their 9-10 minute long songs, they would have room to bring that intro back and have it make sense, kind of refer back to it. But in this format and with a song of this length, they can't do that. So it's like this intro is like, what the hell was that? It was almost like they wrote the song and then were like, we need an intro, and they had this completely other piece of music and just stuck it on the front. It's like, okay.
Yeah, I've never heard them have a transition where when that acoustic comes in, you're like, whoa, I don't know. It just seemed like everything comes to a complete stop, and then okay, which you can do that kind of stuff on the Astonishing because it's a concept, da da da.
Yeah,
but
it's like different chapters.
I don't know. It just felt weird. Like it felt a little bit, forced maybe, or just I don't know. It just didn't flow right. But again, like I said, I got to give them credit because you get to the chorus, and like I said, there's shades of Bridges in the Sky in there, which whatever. I still like the chorus, but it kind of goes back to when we were doing the Metallica album. Like, okay, can I find 3 things I like in a song?
Yeah,
right. Because I'm still real leery. Obviously, I'm going to find way more things I like on this album, just because the consistency of the band,
sure,
on everything they do. But yeah, I mean, they've never played this live before. I can't see any scenario remotely unless they're all sitting around and going, well, this is the one we haven't played, so we got to do it.
Yeah.
I don't see it happening.
No. I mean, they're doing a better job of choosing songs live that fit. James is trying not to hit that high register. He's keeping in his comfort zone. So, I mean, if, maybe they would pull it out for that reason. But other than that, yeah, I completely agree with you on that. Chastity Crawley says, the vocals have the breathy quality from some of the songs off 6 Degrees. Yeah, I would agree with that. I can definitely hear that. There's, I will say this, like, this is kind of a vocally diverse record for James. We haven't touched on that yet, but I think it does go from, some really screaming metal stuff that we'll get to a little bit later, and, down to his really breathy stuff, which I think me and you are in agreement on, that is our favorite way that he sings. When he gets really into his ballad voice, I think that's where he shines. He's absolutely fantastic. And you kind of get all of it. So, I will say that about this record. It's very diverse in terms of, his vocals and, the delivery and whatnot. So moving on to the second to last song. This is another one of the songs that I come back to a lot, along with The Looking Glass. Along for the Ride. I love this song. This one, we've talked on previous shows about songs that are growers. They grow on you, like, View from the Top of the World kind of grows on you the more and more you listen to it. And I think, Along for the Ride is definitely in that category for me. I was like, okay, it's kind of just there when I first got the record. And as the years have gone by, as I've listened, back to songs, I kind of found myself picking and choosing going to this one. And now I listen to it a lot. And the live version, I think, is awesome as well. And this song is just, it's just beautiful. I think the chorus is amazing. Something about, I think what it is for me is that it hits right in a beautiful spot tonally, in terms of James's voice. I believe we're along for the ride. I think it's like right in that perfect spot of his voice where he can do, it just sounds so powerful and yet still so reserved and perfect for the vibe of the song. I think this song is great, and this is just such a catchy song, and it's just a beautiful song. And I would like to hear this one live a lot more than they play it, because they don't ever really bring it out. So this is one I would love to hear. And I'm a huge fan of Along for the Ride. And I like the lyrics, I like the presentation, and this is really becoming one of, like, this is definitely really high up there on my list of top Dream Theater songs. Where do you stand on Along the Ride? Along for the Ride, sorry.
I am along for the ride, and I'm going to pitch in gas money too.
I love it.
So stupid. Nice. I love this song, man. I mean, this I don't think so. I had in my notes, I think this is the most hauntingly beautiful acoustic guitar intro composition thing he's ever done, and this damn thing is only 4:44. I want to hear like that I don't know. I want to hear that thing played like 3 more times or something. It's like I love that line. And then you get to the second verse, switch off the acoustic. He's going to do all these totally killer things on the electric, melodically, and it's like bending up and bending down or whatever it's doing. And it's turning into the super melodic riff on electric guitar. One of James' best vocals ever. Keyboard solo is cool because we kind of were revisiting Beneath the Surface with that ELP synth sound. Yep. I'm always a big fan of that one. And I don't think there's any question remotely. This is by far the best song on this album, and I don't know. You might be able to make an argument this is the best song of the entire Mangini era that they've done. I mean, I don't know. There's just something. And again, this is one I didn't even know the song existed until we started the show. We started doing our episodes, and people started talking about Along for the Ride, and I was like, I think it was like our second episode, and I'm like, what the hell's that song? I never paid attention to it, and then I went back and listened to it. I'm like, oh my God, this is absolutely amazing, James' voice on this. So for sure, man, this I would love to hear this live.
Man, best song of the Mangini era. That's high praise considering, there's Breaking All Illusions to bring up. I mean, we know you're a huge fan of that, so.
Yeah, I know.
Pale Blue Dot is up there for you. I mean,
well,
damn.
This is different though. This is a lot more melody going on, a lot more kind of to the point, but very introspective, I don't know. They cram a lot into 4:44, man, emotionally and melodically.
Okay. See, I'm going to ask that question before we get out of here. After we finished with the deep dive, I want to see if we can really, look at Kale. Kale says, "Oh boy, I missed a lot here. Sorry guys, Kale." You don't have to apologize for missing part of the show, dude. You are literally our first listener ever, and you're pretty much literally on every show. Don't even worry about it, dude.
Well, I mean, I think a small apology doesn't have to be huge,
Dude, Kale rules, man. By the way, Kale, may the 4th be with you, my man. After we're done with the record, I will ask that question. Like, can we think of like the best Mangini era song? Because that's an interesting thing to think about on the fly. I don't know about best Mangini era song, but if we're making a list, it's definitely up there.
Best Mangini era vocal performance? No, you're going to pick Out of Reach. I know you.
You don't need to go any further. You're right.
I know. I'm not going to argue either.
Yeah. All righty. So now we get into the controversial part of our deep dive here, at least for some people. Illumination theory. Illumination theory. This is a song that so many fans just herald as this great epic. It's amazing, and they love it, and they put it up there with the Change of Seasons and stuff. My opinion is no. I said this when we ranked the epics. This is easily my least favorite. This is definitely one of those things like we talked about with the intro to Surrender to Reason, where it's just like they wrote the song, oh, let's stick an intro on. It kind of sounded like that. Illumination theory to me sounds like they had a bunch of pieces of music and kind of just stuck them together. It's almost like if you've heard the demo version of Metropolis Part 2 that they released on the It's a Jam series, where it's 26, 29 minutes or something. And basically a lot of the themes turned into the songs that made up, the Metropolis 2000 record. You're like, yeah, this is just sticking things in there and trying too hard. But there was stuff there you could pull out and extrapolate and really expand upon and really make it something. I think this is exactly like that. I think there's a bunch of really cool stuff in here, and a lot of it doesn't go together. It just changes direction out of nowhere. And at least on all of the other epic songs, the changes of direction feel like they make sense. They're smooth. Again, the only way I'm trying to think of a way to be a little bit more descriptive, but I can't. It just makes sense. The changes make sense. Here they do not. Specifically, that middle part, it's like they stuck like a sleep CD in the middle. Like, oh, go to sleep to the relaxing sounds of the rainforest. Like smack in the middle of a Dream Theater song. Like, the hell is that? And then you just get this orchestral thing, like, okay. I'm like, that, like, I compare it to, Count of Tuscany. The middle part of Count of Tuscany is really weird like that, but that actually fits. Like, it feels like it's part of the song. This just is like, I honestly feel like, in my head, I can picture the band just walking off stage and just having jungle sounds in the middle of the song. What the hell is that? So I do not care for this song. I don't care for this song. It just sounds too glued together. That being said, it has some kick-ass stuff in it. Some of the heavy riffs that Petrucci does are, they're incredible. And that James vocal coming out of, that goofy middle part, when he's doing that scream, oh my God, that's one of his best vocals ever in the entire Dream Theater catalog. And that really is a throwback to stuff like, I think it's like a throwback to stuff like he did on Awake, which when I first heard the record, I was like, fuck yeah, James. And it was even better when you get to, breaking the fourth wall and he's doing it live. You're like, son of a bitch, hell yeah. So I love that. It's great, some great guitar stuff. Again, there's some really good parts here, but they don't fit together, and they should have been, let's say they made a concept record based off the Illumination theory. I think that would be kick-ass. But as just one song, to me, it's the demo version of Metropolis Part 2. You can talk anytime.
Oh, well, we have a little delay here once in a while when you're doing that.
Sorry.
So I wasn't sure. No, it's
my
fine.
wonderful internet.
So this is not to be phony. I actually looked up. I wanted to know Illumination theory, what that kind of meant. So, the early Christian philosopher Augustine emphasized the role of divine illumination in our thought, saying the mind needs to be enlightened by light from outside itself, so that it can participate in truth, because it is not itself the nature of truth. So basically saying, like, we don't know anything, only God does, right? Aquinas' theory of illumination places the gaining of knowledge about the natural world firmly in the natural world itself, since our powers of reason are part of our natural world. Now, what does that have to do with anything?
Well, the natural world, I guess that's the middle part.
Exactly. So What I will say about this song is the last 7, and Kyle kind of remarked, the last 6 minutes and 40 seconds, the hair on the back of my neck stands up. I love the vocal part. We've talked about the part before. Until you struggle through the dark, you'll never know the joy of life. To feel the joy of life, you must suffer through the pain. And that's the kind of stuff that everyone sort of needs to kick themselves and think about once in a while, right, when you're down.
Okay.
I'm okay if we come into the 9-minute part when the string symphony comes in. Let's just start there. Then you got the bass riff goes into the angry James, the heavy vocal part that you're drooling all over that you love.
Drooling all over.
Well, no, it's cool. I mean, I agree. I love what he's doing there. I think the James heavy vocal is awesome. 12 and a half, Jordan piano. I call this the, you're going to laugh at this. So this is the Lawyer movie piano theme when he's doing that. Specifically John Grisham and the Firm. So, yeah, it's these dancing, chromatic, jazzy splices come in and out of these intense sequences. That's what he's doing. I love that type of piano playing. He did that on some of that, what was that song, Black Ice? I think I picked from it was him and Petrucci when they played that concert. Yeah, well, okay, so that album they have. They do a lot of that type of stuff. But yeah, man, lyrically, I love the end of this and the message it's sending. And, so I guess the last 12. The other weird thing is there's 30 seconds at the end where there's nothing. You think it's over, and then Jordan comes back in with this piano outlude, which I don't even think most people even know is even on there. Because if you don't leave it running, if you turn it off when the song stops, you're not going to hear that. I guess I'd forgot that was even in there.
I did too, and I think that little piece, I call it the hidden track.
Yeah.
I think that is a perfect example of, it's kind of like a missed opportunity, because that is a beautiful piece of music. I think if you extend that and just keep it going with the guitar and the piano just like that, but you put a James vocal over that with a little bit of harmony vocal, could you imagine how beautiful that would be? And instead it's just by the way, 45 seconds after the end of this epic song, like here's this cool thing we had nothing to do with, like,
which is them just being goofy in the studio, I guess, and I get that, but yeah, I don't know. I guess my thing is, like, this isn't like Ministry of Lost Souls where I'm like, there's nothing about me personally. There's nothing about that song I find that inspires me that I go, oh my God, this is. To me, it's just a big giant 16 minutes of blah, whatever it is. This, if I get through the first 9 minutes. The last 9 are so damn good. But yeah, I mean, I wish it was arranged better. I get the big time feel of the astonishing again on the intro to this, as I did for False Awakening Suite.
I can hear that.
Even the melody at the end of the song, the da 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 da. Da, there's like you could see the astonishing sort of like happening in there a little bit. And I'd be curious if he took that at all from, that idea or anything. I don't know how that works sometimes with songwriters, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. The people that absolutely drool over this song, I'm not gonna go there.
Yeah,
I don't have the hatred you have for it, but mainly because I just think that vocal part at the end is so freaking good.
Yeah, again, I don't hate it. I don't understand all the love for it and stuff. And for me, you made a point earlier about how, with the astonishing, and now this ties into the astonishing. I completely agree with that. But as we also said earlier, with the False Awakening Suite, that sounds like, okay, it's obviously the beginning of the show. Well, the end of Illumination Theory obviously sounds like the end of the show. So it to me, that's one of the really cool aspects of this record is you can tell that they bookended this record with stuff like this is how the show is going to go when you go see the concert. So I think that's kind of cool. Man, I can't get on board with the song. I've tried so hard, and I remember back in was it 2014 when they put out Breaking the Fourth Wall? Yeah, 14 when they put out Breaking the Fourth Wall. And Aiken got an interview with John Petrucci, and that was the infamous interview I think I've referenced on here, where we ended the interview with, Chris telling John that he had to settle an argument between Aiken and I, because Aiken always says that they're completely undisciplined songwriters, and I say they're incredibly disciplined, because you have to be disciplined to keep people's interest for like 10, 12, 14 minutes, whatever. So, and John had a great answer for that. I'll have to find the audio of that and play it sometime on the show here. But at the end of Aiken's interviews, he lets the artist pick a song. And John picked, from Breaking the Fourth Wall, he picked Illumination Theory. And it was just an audio interview. And I went, like, thankfully I was off mic, but I was like, damn. Like, I was waiting, for something else. But I was like, damn, again, I don't hate it. It's just if I'm going back to, I mean, I skip this when I listen to the record. I'm like, okay, it's just, I don't know. It's, Kale mentioned it earlier in the comments that if it was, a lot shorter, it would be gold. And yeah, I agree with that. There's just a lot of filler stuff, and again, that middle part is, I don't know, man. Like, I think it's really cool. Like when you talked about early, when you looked up the meaning of Illumination Theory, okay, the natural world, whatever. That's awesome. But the problem is that if I have to hear that and then I need to know that to appreciate what's going on, I think it kind of misses the mark. I mean, I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like, okay, like when you say them, like, oh, okay, so it's like jungle sounds and shit because it's the natural world. That's what Illumination Theory is. All right, cool. But if I have to know that to gain an interest in it, Chastity Crawley. See, you skip songs too. It's not that I skip it. It's just that I skip. All right, let me rephrase that, Chastity. I don't skip it. I skip around in the song, because when I get to the sleep sound CD part in the middle, I go immediately to the mothers for the children, father for their whatever, like that. Get back to the heavy stuff. Like, let me get to that part. So, Kale says, I've heard the band refer to this album as being like a movie, and I can see the Easter egg as the closing credits. There's a great flow all up. I just loathe the Looking Glass. What? You got to be kidding me, Kale. Wait, oh, you know what? Here's another one. Look at this. And Kale, I don't know what he was referring to. This is an earlier comment. Because, yeah, that bit makes no sense live. I think he's talking about the middle of Illumination Theory. It makes it all the worse that they still haven't played Surrender to Reason live. All right, Kale, let me get this straight. You want them to play the worst song on the record, and you don't like the best song on the record. The hell is wrong with you?
I think that sounds about right.
Kale, what is wrong with you? I don't think I've ever disagreed with you more on this show. Holy crap.
Hey, everyone likes what they like.
Yeah, but what he likes is dumb.
I don't know. I don't.
I love you, Kale. You know I'm kidding.
The interesting thing about that is there a great flow on this album? I don't know, and I'm like literally not saying that to be flip. Like I'm not sure.
No, I don't think there is, dude. Again, I'm gonna go back to the well and beat the dead horse. They got this experiment. They got it right on Distance Over Time, because Distance Over Time feels cohesive. It has ups and downs and different feels and stuff like that, but it feels like something cohesive. This does not feel like that.
But the problem with your argument, though, is the one that they stumbled the most on was the longest song. Like, they kind of were okay on that formula for, like, let's just throw out False Awakening Suite. Like the other, if you throw out Surrender to Reason, okay. So then we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 6 songs. If we throw out 3, right? We throw out the opener, the closer, and Surrender to Reason. So we have 6 songs where they succeeded, I think, in what they were trying to do. And then when they did the one long one, I don't know. I think you might be losing your own argument there.
No, man. I disagree. At least to me, I think, again, there's a lot of missed opportunities on this record. And I really think that, I mean, if you look at it, like songs that are, let's say 6 minutes long on this album, if they would have extended them a little bit, I think they would have been perfect. So you get like an 8-minute song. That's what they did on Distance Over Time. But again, I think they were finding their footing with the Mangini lineup. This was only, this record was released in 2013. So if they didn't start recording it in 13, writing and recording it in 13, it was definitely in 2012. So they were only, 2 years into this lineup after they'd been with Portnoy for like 25 plus years. So it's understandable that it would be a little awkward, and again, trying to find their way without their third songwriter, because Mike Portnoy was that third voice, and he was a very, very strong creative voice. And so without that, obviously, we know that John and Jordan are used to writing together and all that, but when you don't have that third person to bounce things off of, you get the, hey, is this cool? Yeah. But you don't have that third person that might hear something different, like, well, what if we tried this? And, Mike Portnoy, he's a very, very, very good songwriter, man, in terms of progressive music. I mean, no one can take that away from him. So again, that's why I said earlier, I think you start hearing it on The Astonishing, they fall more into a groove, and then it really hits on Distance Over Time and A View from the Top of the World.
Well, I guess my point is if we just go song by song and take those 6, I think the only thing I would like, we agree Enigma Machine doesn't need to be longer. That was probably perfect.
Yep.
Enemy Inside, I think, is just right. I would like to hear definitely Long for the Ride. But that one isn't even 5 minutes, so I would love another 2 minutes there.
Yeah.
Bigger Picture, I think is probably okay where it is. Well, I love that song more than you do anyway. But so I don't know. Yeah, I mean, they definitely, 2 of the last 3 being the weakest on the album, at least in terms of front to back, I think hurts this album. But it's better than having two of the the 3 at the beginning, I guess.
Okay.
So I don't know. I mean, I agree with what you're saying. I mean, I don't know if, obviously, I guess Mangini probably had very little input, if at all, on this.
Well, he had some. I mean, it's, he wrote his own drum parts, at least.
Right.
I don't know. I still don't know how much of a songwriter he is in terms of, guitars, bass, drums, all that, because Portnoy did have input on that kind of thing.
Right.
I don't know that. I still don't know if Mangini plays the instruments enough to go, hey, let's try this. Like, here, this riff could go there. Da 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 da.
Well, didn't he write most of the music on was it the last song on Distance Over Time? That one about the car. What the hell was that one? Viper King?
Viper King.
Yeah. But,
here we go. Well, all right. So, yeah, I don't know, man. That's something I got to look up, because I don't know how much in terms, I just don't know. Simple answer, I don't know. I don't know what he's responsible for in terms of the instrumentation. So, again, but like I said earlier, the albums have gotten very guitar driven over the last 2, and so you can definitely tell that Petrucci's influences there. So before we get out of here, we wanted to do real quick, see how fast we can come up with best Mangini era song. But Brandon Charles has a question for us, if my internet would catch up. Brandon Charles wants to know, question for you. You can get to it at the end of the podcast. What are our plans for the future? Since you've done the deep dive on all the albums, where do you go from here? We still have The Astonishing to do, so we're going to be doing that late summer. That's going to be a 2-parter, because we're going to do disc 1 and disc 2. It's also going to be with our very good friend Robert Husted, who is my best friend Andy's brother-in-law. So we're going to have a special guest host for those episodes. After that, in case you have noticed, I have started introing the show by saying a Dream Theater-centric podcast. So Brian and I still really enjoy doing the show. We're not slowing down at all. But that's why we've been introducing other bands and stuff into the mix, like bands that influence Dream Theater and whatnot. Anytime there's anything Dream Theater talk about, that's what we're going to do. But we're going to bring up bands that we like. We like the format of doing the deep dives, and I think, going forward, Brian's not as big a fan of the cage match idea as I am, but I think it's cool to like pit two records against each other. And I think in the future, if we can find albums that have equivalent numbers of songs, I think that's kind of an interesting thing to do to see which one we prefer. But yeah, we're gonna kind of branch out into other music, but anytime there's anything Dream Theater to talk about, or if we can get one of the guys on, or a band that's related to Dream Theater or something, we're going to do that. So the show is going to definitely keep going for sure, and it'll be as much Dream Theater as we can possibly fit in there. Brian, I would assume you agree. Hopefully you do. You're my co-host. If you disagree, then we need to have a serious talk offline.
Well, you said we still enjoy doing the show. I don't know about all that. A little too far.
Right.
Yeah, no, we're going to try to, we knew it was going to come to this at some point. We're still talk about Dream Theater and whatever they're doing. We'll probably talk about some live albums, here and there. We'll try to come up with some. I guess we'll go ahead and tease this. We're going to do something similar to the Metallica. So they're doing this tour where they're playing 2 nights in every city, right?
No repeat weekend, yeah.
So there's a completely different show each night. So we had an idea of kind of doing almost a draft, and we got to construct, two nights of sets, and we have to pick one song from each album, I think is what we said.
Yeah, we're each picking a song from each album.
Yeah.
So we'll each have 15 songs, and then when we each have 15 songs, we're then going to put them in order and write a set list. So what would the no repeat Dream Theater set list weekend look like?
And we're going to do that all live. We're not going to come in and go, this is mine, this is yours. So that's going to be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we might even take people's, if we got enough people, pushing for certain songs and we're on the fence and we got a tie or something, if people are live, well, maybe we'll go with what they're wanting to do too. So
yeah. And also one of the things we came up with for that one is we are eliminating songs that are too obvious. Because there's certain songs that Brian and I obviously just gush over. We've already come up with a list of Breaking All Illusions, The Glass Prison, The Great Debate, Metropolis, Pull Me Under.
Count of Tuscany, I can't use that.
Okay, Count of Tuscany, Trial of Tears. Yeah, basically we don't want to get to a record, and because there's a lot of you guys in the chat and stuff like that, and we get emails and messages all the time from people, that listen to all the shows, and we basically don't want to get to a record and have somebody go, oh well, John's gonna pick this, or Brian's gonna pick that. We want to try and force ourselves out of our comfort zone and pick something that we don't normally choose. So we're gonna do that, but yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, Brandon, the show's gonna keep going. Brian is one of my very best friends, and
again,
I love
best. Let's tone it down just a little bit.
Look, man, just because I'm able to express my emotions and you're a heartless bastard. But yeah, I mean, Brian's one of my best friends. We love doing the show together. We love talking music, and I'm personally I'm very proud of what we do because I think I come from a dumb fan perspective, I really like this because it's heavy. But Brian's a classically trained musician, and he knows all the terminology and notation and stuff like that. And I think that's pretty cool to bounce the way we bounce off each other like that. So
yeah, I mean, there's we're going to be going. We'll talk about this. We're going to be going to see your basically the son of your idol. We're going to go see Wolfgang Van Halen.
Yep.
And Seven Dust, and then you're going to leave, and I'm going to stay and watch Alter Bridge.
Yeah, Alter Bridge doesn't exist at that show for me.
So yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about that. Maybe when that show comes around, maybe we could do even something like, hey, let's pick a best of Seven Dust. Maybe we could do a Seven Dust episode. Why the hell not, man?
Yeah.
that would be cool. I'd be down with something like that.
And Brandon, one thing that we always have like the banner going at the bottom of the screen, but for anybody listening, anybody watching, like our email address is easy. It's talkingintoinfinity@gmail.com. If you guys have show ideas, shoot us an email. Like we may not be able to use all of them because sometimes it doesn't work in a long form podcast format, I should say. But if you guys have ideas, man, like we're always open to stuff you guys would like to do. We've got that, you can be on the show live with us. We're still working out that link. I think it's tii.cmspn.com. We're working that out so you guys can actually literally right now, Brandon, if you wanted to ask live, if the link was working, you just go into that link and we'd see you in the green room, bring you on, be like, hey guys, got a question. So, we really want to encourage the fan interaction. People coming on camera, people commenting, yada, yada. That's obviously why we've done the fan hangouts, which we're doing this year on December 22nd. And we're trying to line up a whole bunch more interviews. We've got some really cool interviews that we've been chasing for a bit, and I think we're going to get a few. We're going to have Paul Logue back on. He wants to talk about the Queensryche record Empire, but also obviously they're currently writing the new James LaBrie solo record, so we can get some stuff, talk to him about that and see what's going on there. But yeah, so that's basically where it's at. That's a very long answer to a short question, but.
Yeah, we love. Show ideas. For $20, we'll talk about anything.
Nice.
$20.
It's
Kale,
50.
all right, you got to
It's
pull
50.
up Kale's comment. Dude, just stay and see Alter Bridge. They're on top of their game right now.
I'm not a fan.
Kale, this is like trying to get John to admit that the Phantom Menace is the biggest piece of trash in the history of the world.
You know what, you fuckhead? Yeah, see, I just dumped, for all those you guys listening to the audio version, I just dumped Brian from the podcast for disrespecting Star Wars on Star Wars Day. And that movie is not the biggest piece of trash. It's incredibly underrated, and anybody who's actually a Star Wars fan admits that over and over again. All right, you're back. Have you thought about what you said, and are you repenting? What
is this May the 4th anyway? It's just the day before. It's Cinco de Mayo, isn't it? When is Cinco de Mayo? Is it always on the 5th of May?
Well, I will say this. As I posted on social media, as much as today is Star Wars Day, which is huge for me, it's a much more important holiday in my house because my dog Veli turns 8 today. So it's her birthday, and we had doggy cake. We had a doggy birthday party. So that's much more important than Star Wars. But
happy birthday.
Yeah, she's such a sweetheart. Anyway, don't get me started on my dog. She's the best. Chastity Crawley, she says, we need to schedule the Octavarium Roundtable. I've been doing my research, and I am ready. So Octavarium in the Octagon. I'm telling you, I already got a title for that episode, man.
I'll be sick that week. I'm gonna sit that.
That's
one
fine.
out.
That's fine. I will moderate between Chastity and Adam Rishog, Sean Faust. I'm all for that. I am all for that. I think that'd be good. First of all, because I think it's just a cool episode title. Octavarium in the Octagon is a great title. But.
I do have to ask, though, going back to May the 4th. So how many Star Wars movies do you actually watch today?
On the day of?
On the day of, yeah. You have to at least watch one, don't you?
No. See, okay, it's different for me. Remember, like, I've got, for those who don't know, I'm the show's on camera, like, I have Star Wars tattooed on my forearms, for Christ's sakes. I've got
you're
the
a pretty
logo on my
big
forearm.
fan in general.
Little bit. So there's something going on Star Wars in my life literally every single day. So a holiday like today is for us super nerds to like, actually, it's okay to be a super nerd. But a lot of us don't actually go bonkers and go, well, I'm going to watch 8 movies and do this, that, and the other. Like, had today, May the 4th, been a Friday, I would have taken off work because I haven't gotten to play through the new Star Wars game yet, and I would have taken off work to play through the new Star Wars game. But, I really don't. I do some shopping because you get some really good deals on some cool merch and shirts and stuff like that. But other than that, no, it's, so.
All right, hold that thought. My buddy from way back in high school, Daryl Hasse, a show about how the Sammy era is far superior to the Dave era. Well, that might be interesting.
Daryl, that is going to have to be over like 4 or 5 episodes, because I can talk about that for as long as you want to hear about it.
I was going to say.
That being said, I love all Van Halen. I have the slightest preference for the Sammy era. In terms of which lead singer do I prefer, it's Sammy by far, because he can actually sing, and he's not a total stuck-up asshole douchebag. Dave is a creepy, weird goof. One of the greatest frontmen to ever exist. But goddamn is that guy weird, and he's a dick. So anyway, before we get out of here, because before we go too far off the rails, Brian, real quick, as fast as we can, you mentioned earlier that Along for the Ride might be the best Mangini era Dream Theater song. Can we think of one that's better? Can we think of, off the top of our heads, I would bring the one that pops out to me immediately is Barstool Warrior. That is one that stands out to me. Breaking All Illusions is up there. I think those are
At Wit's End for me.
Okay, I'll give you that one. Okay, I think it's, for me, on an immediate judgment, like I say, for me it's Barstool Warrior and Breaking All Illusions. Kale completely agrees. He says At Wit's End. So there we go.
Well, the funny thing about it is At Wit's End is it's almost a mix of Breaking All Illusions and Barstool Warrior.
Yeah, it really is.
If you think about it, like in a way. So Daryl says Barstool. Yeah, so it's kind of funny. Yep. We're all sort of in the same vein on this one.
See, I like an honorable mention that I don't think really counts. I'm a huge fan of Our New World off The Astonishing, but that's just too obvious, and it's kind of like short and single E, and I don't know. But I love the riff. Something about that song is just it's not very Dream Theater-ish at all, but yeah. I absolutely love that song. So that's another one that comes to mind, but I can't put it up there. I'm gonna stick with Barstool Warrior and Breaking All Illusions. So look at Kale. Alter Bridges in the Sky. Got to get that Alter Bridge reference in there.
Bridges in the Sky. They seem to be playing that a lot lately, and I always love that song. So I'm not gonna. I'd put that in the probably second tier of the higher, of the tiers. But it's right. It's up there. It's definitely probably. I would put it in the top 10 as far as Mangini songs for sure.
I think I would too. I think that's a good choice, man. So, all right. Well, on that note, let's get out of here for tonight. Thank you to everybody who showed up in the chat tonight: Giovanni Palaya, Chastity Crawley, Brandon Charles, Kale McLeish, Daryl Hazy, all you guys, Robert Reams. Have a blast at that Haken show. Great to see all you guys. Thank you very much for tuning into another episode of Talking Into Infinity. We'll be right back here on Thursday, May 18th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Guys, remember, if you're on YouTube, don't forget to click that like button, click that subscribe button, and smash the notification bell. If you are looking for replays of the show, our YouTube channel, the CMS Network YouTube channel, and you can always download audio versions of the show just by Googling Talking Into Infinity podcast. So he is my amazing co-host, Brian. I am John. And until next, guys, can't even talk. Until next time, guys, there we go. As usual, Carpe Diem.